Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The Empire laughed. Until a human women general said, "You want war, we'll give you war." Commander Vexler stared at the holographic display, his 6 eyes blinking in asynchronous annoyance. The blue-tinged image showed a watery planet, third from an unremarkable yellow star, Earth. "Such an uninspiring name for such an uninspiring world," he said. "You mean to tell me," his mandibles clicked with barely suppressed laughter, "that the inhabitants of this backwater mudball actually believe they can refuse our demands? Hey, what do they plan to fight us with, pointy sticks?" Fleet tactician Zorn Val shifted uncomfortably. "Unlike you, Commander, I studied the reports," she said. "With respect, sir, our intelligence suggests the humans are more resourceful than resourceful." "Resourceful?" Commander Vexler bellowed, slamming a clawed appendage on the console. The other officers in the command center flinched. "The Galactic Empire has conquered 47 star systems, we have bent the Arcturian coalition to our will, we have harvested the crystal forests of Betelgeuse Prime for fuel, and you think I should concern myself with the resourcefulness of some bipedal mammals who have barely figured out how to leave their own atmosphere?" Zorn Val knew better than to argue. Vexler had risen through the ranks not through tactical brilliance, but through brutal ambition and family connections. The Vexler lineage had commanded imperial fleets for 12 generations. Unfortunately, competence was not necessarily hereditary, she continued. "Of course not, Commander. I merely thought you would want all available information before we proceed with the annexation." "Annexation?" Commander Vexler's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among their species. The expression sent a chill through Zorn Val's exoskeleton. "The Supreme Overlord has determined that Earth will not be annexed. The humans have something we want, yes, but they are themselves completely expendable. We take their resources, we take their water, and then we turn their little blue marble into a pleasant vacation outpost for imperial citizens." The command center erupted in approving chittering sounds and exoskeleton tapping. "Transmit the final warning to their leaders," Vexler ordered, turning away from the hologram with dismissive contempt. "Let's at least give them the opportunity to surrender before we obliterate their civilization, it makes for better optics with the Galactic Assembly." "Yes, Commander," Communications Officer Rec LA responded, her appendages flying over the control panel. "Message prepared, though I should note our translators are still working on perfecting the nuances of human languages, there may be imprecisions. Who cares? They'll get the point when our warships enter their orbit." Little did Commander Vexler know that this casual dismissal of translation accuracy would prove to be the first in a cascade of catastrophic misjudgments about humanity across the void of space. On that blue marble, which the Galactic Empire had already mentally carved up like a delicious feast, General Elena Mason was having a spectacularly bad day even before the aliens showed up. "What do you mean the joint exercises with the Russians have been postponed?" she barked into her phone, striding through the Pentagon's corridors with such purpose that junior officers practically hurled themselves against the walls to get out of her way. "I don't give a damn about diplomatic sensitivities, Admiral, we need those hypersonic defense protocols tested by next week," she declared. Her tirade was cut short as every light in the building suddenly dimmed. Her phone went dead. Throughout the massive structure, screens flickered and then displayed the same message in blocky text that somehow managed to convey condescension even through its alien font. "Humans of Earth, your pathetic planet has been selected for resource extraction by the glorious Galactic Empire. Your species is deemed insufficient for preservation. Surrender immediately to minimize suffering before General Mason's warning, extinction." For 3 full seconds there was complete silence in the Pentagon corridor. Then General Mason did something that would later be recorded in both human and alien historical accounts as the moment everything changed. She laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a hysterical one, it was the kind of laugh that comes from someone who has seen the absurdity of the universe and found it wanting. It was a laugh that said, "You've got to be kidding me. Get me the president," she said to her aide, who had already produced a backup comm device, and tell the Joint Chiefs we're implementing Case Omega. Looks like all those wasteful defense appropriations I've been fighting for just became the best investment in human history. 6 hours later, General Mason stood before the hastily assembled Planetary Defense Council, a contingency body that most of its members had honestly never expected to be activated. Representatives from every major military power on Earth had been transported to the secure facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Ladies and gentlemen, Mason addressed the room, her voice steady despite having gone without sleep since the alien message. First contact has occurred, and it's not the friendly version we hoped for. An alien empire, calling themselves the KH-SARI, has essentially issued an extermination notice. A Chinese general to her right snorted. Perhaps this is an elaborate American hoax to justify military expansion. Mason fixed him with a stare that could have flash-frozen nitrogen. General Chan, I understand skepticism, but the same message was received simultaneously by every nation in their respective languages. Our astronomers have detected a fleet of objects decelerating at the edge of our solar system, objects that violate every physical law our science understands about propulsion and energy generation. Before further objections could be raised, the room's main screen activated. A creature appeared, vaguely insectoid with multiple appendages and a chittering exoskeleton, iridescent purple-black. When it spoke, its mandibles clicked and clacked, the words were translated by subtitles at the bottom of the screen. Humans, I am Ambassador Krexner of the KH-SARI Empire. Your species has been granted the unusual privilege of direct communication before harvesting begins. Our Supreme Overlord is feeling generous. General Mason stepped forward. This is General Eleanor Mason of Earth's United Defense Forces. We received your initial message, which we interpret as a declaration of hostile intent. If this is a misunderstanding, we welcome peaceful dialogue. If not, be advised that humanity will defend itself. The alien made a sound that the translation software couldn't process, but which sounded disturbingly like laughter. Defend yourselves with what? Our scans show your most advanced weapons are laughably primitive. Your strongest warships would not survive 10 seconds against even our scout vessels. Perhaps, Mason replied coolly, but I would suggest it's unwise to judge a species' capabilities from long-range scans alone. Oh, but we have studied your kind extensively, the ambassador chittered. Internally divisive, environmentally destructive, you can't even achieve unity on your own planet. The only remarkable thing about humans is how unremarkable you are. The galaxy will not notice your absence. Mason's expression remained neutral, but those who knew her well could see the dangerous glint in her eye. If we're so unremarkable, why bother communicating at all? Just attack and be done with it. The ambassador's mandibles clicked rapidly. As I said, our Supreme Overlord is feeling generous. Surrender now, and we will permit 10% of your population to live as a labor resource. Resist, and extinction is assured. General Mason straightened to her full height, though the alien towered over her in the video feed. Something in her posture made several people in the room instinctively step back. Ambassador Krexner, please convey this message to your Supreme Overlord. She paused, making sure the translation software had time to process her words. You want war? We'll give you war. Humanity doesn't surrender to bullies, whether they come from this planet or another. We have faced extinction-level threats throughout our history, some from nature, some of our own making, and we're still here. If your empire wants Earth, you'll have to pry it from our cold, dead hands. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried more threat than a shout could have, and I promise you, we will make that process so painful, so costly, that generations of KH-SARI will learn the name of our planet as a cautionary tale. The ambassador's 6 eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. Such bravado from a species about to be extinguished, Krexner finally responded. Your defiance has been noted and will make the conquest of Earth all the more satisfying. Prepare for annihilation. The transmission cut off for a moment. The room was silent, then the Russian defense minister spoke. That went well, duh. His grim joke broke the tension, eliciting strained laughter. General Mason turned to the assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, we have approximately 72 hours before their fleet reaches Earth. Every second counts. It's time to activate the Prometheus protocols. The French representative frowned. The what protocols? Mason smiled thinly. You didn't think all those black-budget projects were just about building better bombs, did you? Back aboard the KH-Sari command ship, Ambassador Krexner reported to Commander Wexler with barely contained excitement. The humans refused our terms, just as expected. Their spokesperson was particularly vivid in her defiance. Commander Wexler reclined in his command throne. Excellent. The Supreme Overlord prefers when species resist. It justifies the total harvesting protocols. Fleet tactician Zorn Val cleared her throat nervously. Commander, if I may, something about the human response concerns me. What now, Zorn Val? Wexler demanded. More concerns about their resourcefulness. Wexler's tone dripped with mockery. Not exactly, sir. It's their confidence. Our historical records show that when species are confronted with overwhelming technological superiority, they typically display fear, panic, or desperate pleading. The humans showed none of these responses. In fact, their military leader seemed almost eager for conflict. Commander Wexler waved a dismissive claw. Primitive species often resort to bluster when faced with superior force. It's a psychological defense mechanism, nothing more. Perhaps, Zorn Val persisted, but I recommend we conduct more thorough scans before committing our main fleet. Something doesn't add up. Your caution is noted, tactician, Wexler said with exaggerated patience, but the invasion timeline has already been approved by Imperial Command. We detect no orbital defenses of consequence, no energy signatures indicating advanced weapon systems, and their space vessels are laughably fragile. The first wave will launch in 30 cycles as planned. Zorn Val bowed her head in resignation. Aye, Commander. As she returned to her station, Zorn Val couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The human response didn't match any of the predictive models. Either they were delusional about their capabilities, or they knew something the KH-Sari didn't. As the alien fleet approached Earth, Commander Wexler watched with satisfaction as the invasion force moved into position, 500 warships arranged in Earth's true power, the traditional KH-Sari attack formation, a three-dimensional spear point designed to penetrate planetary defenses and establish orbital superiority within minutes. Begin the first wave, he ordered. Target their military installations, communication centers, and governmental structures. Standard Subjugation Protocol. The first wave of KHC fighters streamed toward Earth's atmosphere, weapons primed and energy shields at maximum strength. Commander Wexler permitted himself a moment of anticipation, another victory to add to his illustrious record, perhaps finally earning him that promotion to the Imperial High Command. His pleasant reverie was interrupted by a frantic call from the lead attack squadron command. We're encountering resistance, Wexler, they reported. Wexler blinked in confusion. Resistance? What kind of resistance? They could possibly offer unknown weapon signatures. They're not matching anything in our database. We've lost Alpha Squadron. Bravo Squadron reporting critical damage. They're everywhere. The command center erupted in chaos as more reports flooded in. Wexler stared at the tactical display in disbelief as, one by one, dozens of red dots representing his fighters winked out. Impossible, he whispered. Where did they get such weapons? Tactician Zorn Val was already analyzing the incoming data. Sir, it appears the humans have some form of energy-based defense system we didn't detect, and they have spacecraft emerging from hidden lunar bases. Lunar bases? We scanned their moon, there was nothing there. Evidently, our scans were inadequate, she replied, managing to keep any hint of, I told you so, from her voice. On the main view screen, the situation deteriorated before their eyes. Human vessels, sleek, dark ships that bore no resemblance to the clumsy rockets the KH-Sari had observed, swarmed from behind Earth's moon. They moved with impossible agility, outmaneuvering the KH-SARI fighters despite their supposedly inferior technology. How is this possible? Vexler demanded. Where did they get such technology on Earth? General Mason stood in the Global Defense Command Center watching as humanity revealed its full hand for the first time. Around her, military leaders from a dozen nations coordinated the counterattack with practiced precision. Artemis Squadron, execute flanking pattern Delta, she ordered. Orbital defense platforms, target their support vessels. Let's show these bugs what happens when you threaten humanity. The massive view screen showed the battle unfolding in real time. For decades, the world's governments had maintained the fiction of limited space capabilities and merely adequate military technology, all while pouring trillions into black-budget programs that had produced the ships and weapons now revealing themselves. The Prometheus Protocols, named after the Titan who stole fire from the gods, had been humanity's ultimate insurance policy. Ever since the Roswell incident in 1947 confirmed the existence of extraterrestrial life, Earth's major powers had quietly agreed on one thing: they might fight among themselves, but they would present a united front against any cosmic threat. General, the KH-SARI fleet is regrouping, her tactical officer reported. They're pulling back to defensive positions. Good, Mason nodded. Deploy the Nemesis warheads aboard the KH-SARI command ship. Emergency alarms blared as Commander Vexler struggled to comprehend the disaster unfolding around him. Status report, he bellowed. First wave decimated, sir, Communications Officer Resell reported, her voice tight with stress. 70% losses. Second wave reporting unknown energy signatures targeting their positions, recall them. Pull everything back to defensive formation around the command ships. We need to regroup and reassess, Vexler ordered. Sir, the sensor officer called out, the counterattack, his voice trembled with genuine fear. New weapon signatures were detected, multiple launch points from the planet's surface. On the tactical display, dozens of tiny projectiles rose from Earth to the KH-SARI sensors. They appeared to be primitive, simple ballistic missiles that posed no threat to their advanced shielding. However, tactician Zorn Val noticed something alarming. Those aren't conventional weapons, she said frantically, analyzing the readings. They're giving off quantum displacement signatures. What does that mean? Vexler demanded an explanation. Moments later, the first Nemesis warhead detonated near a cluster of KH-SARI cruisers. There was no conventional explosion, instead, a sphere of distorted spacetime expanded outward. When it touched the alien ships, they simply ceased to exist, the very atoms of their construction pulled apart and scattered across dimensional boundaries. By the Supreme Overlord, Vexler whispered, what kind of monsters are these humans? In the Earth Defense Command Center, General Mason watched with grim satisfaction as the Nemesis warheads did their work, a product of decades of reverse engineering technology from crashed alien vessels combined with humanity's own relentless innovation. Her aide said quietly, the KH-SARI commander is requesting communication. Mason nodded. Put them through. Commander Vexler's image appeared on the screen. Gone was the arrogant conqueror, his exoskeleton had lost its lustrous sheen, and his mandibles twitched with agitation. General Mason, he began, his translator struggling to filter the stress from his voice, there appears to have been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Commander, Mason replied evenly. You threatened to exterminate our species. We responded accordingly. Perhaps our translation software conveyed our intentions poorly, Vexler attempted. The KH-SARI Empire seeks peaceful relations, Mason cut him off. Your peaceful fleet just tried to bomb our cities into oblivion. Fortunately for you, we limited our response to military targets only. We're not the monsters here. Vexler's compound eyes seemed to narrow. How did you hide such technology from our scans? Your species showed no evidence of quantum mechanics mastery or advanced propulsion systems. For the first time in their interaction, General Mason smiled, not a reassuring expression. That's the thing about humans, Commander, we're very good at playing the long game. Your empire has conquered 47 systems, congratulations, but while you were busy bullying other worlds, we were preparing. We detected your scout ships decades ago, we've been watching you, studying you, and preparing for this day. That's not possible, Vexler insisted. Our stealth technology is based on bending light around a gravitational field, Mason explained. It's effective against most detection methods, but it creates a distinctive distortion in background cosmic radiation. We spotted it in 1986. By the time your secret observation posts were established in our outer solar system, we were already analyzing your technology. The alien commander seemed to physically deflate. What happens now? He asked. Now, Mason leaned forward, you take what's left of your fleet and return to your empire. You tell them that Earth is off limits. You tell them that if a single KH-Sari ship enters our solar system again without explicit invitation, what happened today will seem like a friendly greeting compared to our response. She paused, letting her words sink in, and then you tell your supreme overlord that humanity is hereby claiming protectorate status over the 7 nearest star systems to Earth, including those you've already conquered, which will be arriving to liberate them shortly. Preposterous. Vexler sputtered. The Empire will never. The Empire will do exactly as we say, Mason interrupted. Or we will bring the war to you, and trust me, Commander, you haven't seen a fraction of what we can do when we're actually trying. The communication ended, leaving Commander Vexler staring at a blank screen. In the ruins of his career, his ambitions were, quite possibly, the beginning of the end for the KH-Sari Empire itself. 1 year later, tactician Zorn Val, now elevated to fleet commander after the disgrace and execution of Vexler, stood before the Imperial Strategic Council, delivering her final report on what had become known as the Earth catastrophe. In conclusion, she said to the assembled KH-Sari leadership, our fundamental mistake was one of perspective. We assumed technological advancement followed a predictable, linear path. We judged the humans by their visible infrastructure, their public capabilities, and their apparent divisions. We failed to consider that a species might deliberately conceal its true strength, might prioritize defensive innovation over expansion, and might unite in the face of external threats despite internal conflicts. The Supreme Overlord, a massive KH-Sari whose exoskeleton bore the ceremonial gold inlays of 10,000 conquered worlds, leaned forward. And your recommendation, Commander Zorn Val, he asked, straightening, knowing her next words might mean either her elevation or her death. The KH-Sari Empire must sue for peace with the humans, not from a position of weakness, but from a position of wisdom. They have now liberated 5 of our former subject worlds. Our attacks against their forces have proven feeble. Their technology continues to advance at a rate our scientists cannot explain. More importantly, they have begun sharing their technology with other species. The coalition they are building could eventually challenge even our full military might. I recommend a diplomatic solution, and while such a solution is still possible. The Supreme Overlord was silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he began to laugh, a harsh clicking sound that echoed off the chamber walls. How amusing, he finally said, for 12,000 cycles the